The All Elite Wrestling Draft is back, and we are speculating where the recent WWE releases end up. On today's episode, we're putting on the big board Samoa Joe. Ralph, we recently did a poll on our community page. If Tony Khan only had one person to sign out of the following, who would it be? And it was like almost 80% Samoa Joe. So I think just for the sheer fact that fans want him to be in AEW, AEW needs to make a strong play for Samoa Joe if there's only one name they can get.
Yeah, and I think the big question is his health. You know, where is he at? I mean, those are the rumors that are kind of going around right now, is the fact that he couldn't get cleared to wrestle by WWE. Assuming he can get cleared and he can go out there and wrestle, either him or on Andrade, those would be my one or two picks that I would take from guys that used to work in WWE and sign them to AEW. Now, like you pointed out, here's the thing. We're already seeing a lot of former WWE guys pop up in AEW, not just guys that are wrestling, but we saw Big Show go there.
Yep.
Got to imagine that those contracts aren't cheap. And granted, AEW is successful, but they certainly don't have the amount of money and the infrastructure like WWE has, where they can just kind of throw money around to sign everybody that they want. Now, yes, I understand that Tony Khan, or his father, however you want to look at this, is a billionaire.
Yep.
That's not the same thing as your money, your company generating enough revenue to cover the cost associated with acquiring talent.
Right.
So that being said, I think Samoa Joe would make a really, really good, interesting addition to the AEW roster, to be quite honest.
Right. I agree. But I also think whether in-ring wrestler or commentator, now I know they have a good commentary team, or at least a full roster of commentators from Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone, Excalibur. Taz goes on with Dark, Paul White's on with Elevation.
Yeah.
So they have a lot of commentators there. But Samoa Joe, when he was on Raw as a commentator, was really, really good, I thought. Actually, one of the highlights of watching Raw, if you take yourself on Mondays and actually watch it, he was one of the highlights of being on there. But I know he wants to be a wrestler more than anything right now. So I look at him and what matches can he have in AEW? Obviously, you could put him in with some big names like Wardlow. You could put him in a match with Jake Hager, obviously with his MMA background. But then you start thinking, like, have Samoa Joe and Cody ever had a match outside of, well, obviously they weren't together in WWE before Cody left. So you start thinking like that. You start thinking this new Moxley with Samoa Joe before, maybe Dean Ambrose is one thing, but now John Moxley's another. Does that change the dynamic of the match? Samoa Joe and Kenny Omega is also another one that people could talk about. Miro. Samoa Joe and Miro, I think some people might want to see too. So there's a lot of people there that we could see Samoa Joe pair up with, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. So many good matches, but again, health is definitely the concern here.
Yeah, and I think one of the suggestions I liked most was the fact that somebody put out there on Twitter. So I'm not taking credit for this, and I don't know who it was off the top of my head. How about him joining Team Taz? And
that's a possibility too.
Maybe it's where Team Taz as a whole starts going on a losing streak, and Taz decides, look, I just need to focus on one guy. And you have Taz, who essentially was, I guess you could say, a similar version in some way to what Samoa Joe kind of is. Taz, obviously in AEW, he was a human suplex machine. He was choking people out. I mean, they have a similarities, I think, as far as their in-ring work in a weird way, and the way they present themselves. So I think that could be a cool dynamic.
Yeah, I think another one though, you brought up Twitter and someone pitching this idea. How about long-term storytelling here with MJF?
Yeah, right. Yep.
For those that don't remember, MJF was a security guard for Samoa Joe during one, I think it was a takeover, and Samoa Joe pushes him to the side, and that was it. We never saw anything from him because obviously MJF was just used as an extra at that point, not actually signed to WWE. But imagine if, Chris Jericho, talks to Vince and be like, hey, can we use this clip of NXT, and borrow the rights for it for this episode of Dynamite where Samoa Joe and MJF, tell this story of why MJF hates Samoa Joe. Not a bad idea. And I know some people might be like, oh, Vince is petty. He would never do that. But again, he just like Chris Jericho on the Broken Skull Sessions on the WWE Network. So if he feels like it could help him, why the hell not? Good idea. But obviously the health situation is definitely going to hinder him regardless of where he ends up going. But where can you see him go if not AEW?
Ring of Honor.
Okay.
Bring it full circle. Bring it for full circle. Obviously, you know, he had an obvious connection with Impact back in the day, TNA. But it's not like that's when I think of Samoa Joe, like I feel like there was a certain group of guys that were the foundation of Ring of Honor back in the day. Samoa Joe, CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, Nigel McGuinness, like those are the names that come to mind. I would love to see Samoa Joe, even if it's for 6 months, a year. I don't know if it's fair to say that Samoa Joe's at the tail end of his career, but he's certainly not at the forefront, not at the beginning of it. So I feel like a good 6-month run, 1 year run in Ring of Honor would be a cool way to kind of close out your career, kind of go back to where you started, because it's kind of cool to think that the company is still there.
Yeah, that's true.
I think he kind of helped brand that company and create what it kind of is.
Yeah, I can see Ring of Honor as a possibility. Obviously, Impact. I think a lot of people would believe he made his name more in TNA because he got more exposure there than Ring of Honor. So obviously, he could go back to Impact, and maybe he could definitely could have a title run. You know, with what they have there now. I mean, Rich Swann is the champion, and no disrespect to Rich Swann, but Samoa Joe would definitely go in there and instantly be Impact Wrestling champion. But I'm going to go a little bit on a tangent here, be a little swerve here. What about NWA? What about being the guy that dethrones Nick Aldis for the World's Heavyweight Championship? Think of the promos those two will have back and forth. And in that setting, and NWA focusing, while in-ring talent definitely is a key factor, you got to be able to cut a promo in NWA. And Samoa Joe definitely could do that and have him be that, I guess, villain to Nick Aldis, or if, he could be the babyface against Strictly Business, however dynamic you want to put it in. That would be big money, I think, for NWA, especially now that they went on Fight TV.
Well, not only that, and you talk about TV, but supposedly there's another company that's going to have some type of TV deal coming up pretty soon. And that's MLW. I would love to see Samoa Joe and Jacob Fatu go at it one-on-one. Or
him and Lawler.
Tom Lawler.
Yeah, Tom Lawler would be a great one too. Alexander Hammerstone, or Richard Holiday. There's a lot of good talent in MLW too. If you guys aren't watching MLW on Wednesdays before Dynamite, I would definitely check them out. They got some really good guys there. MLW definitely would be a really good, interesting play. Depends on where this TV deal that Court Bauer's teasing. If it's a big one, obviously Samoa Joe's got to be there to help get those ratings early on, like Jericho did with AEW Dynamite. So that would be a good one. But at the end of the day, where do you see Samoa Joe going?
I think there's going to be a lot of people that want to see him in AEW. And these are going to be the two people that I say go there. So I think Andrade eventually makes his way there, but I think Samoa Joe, once that contract's up, or once that 90-day is up from his contract, I think that he would end up in AEW too.
I think it all comes down to his health. If it's where he cannot be cleared to wrestle outside of WWE, if this is not just a WWE medical team not clearing him, it's going to be hard for him to get signed anywhere. If he goes in as a commentator, like he's signed as a commentator, AEW's out because they already have a commentary team. Can you throw him in Impact? Yeah, I think he'd be a good commentator for Impact. MLW, I think, could use him well as a commentator there. NWA, I know they just repackaged their commentary team, so I don't know if he would be a fit there. But if I'm going just by in-ring wrestling alone, I know a lot of people want him in AEW, but does he get lost in the shuffle in AEW with all the other big names there? So I think NWA is where he's going to end up. Did you miss our top 5 biggest news of the week? You can click the thumbnail on the screen right now to check out that podcast. Subscribe, hit that bell to join the conversation, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Squared Circle Psychobabble.